hi there. So, like I said, I am back, and yep, this is gonna be my review of both Ant Man and the Wasp Quantumania, but also how things have been going with Phase 4 and what that means moving forward. So, you may be wondering why I have a churro here instead of a cup. And the answer is really simple. It's because I can through. But that's besides the point. What I want to talk to you about is 3 points. And just like any essay in high school and or college, one of those points is going to have some sub points, but we're going to get to that when we get to that. So, Quantumania. I saw it over the weekend. It was pretty good. I saw the reviews of people giving it like 54 or whatever, but then you look at something that's TRT and then you see that's in the 80s, 70s, and I just can't help but think like, why are we seeing different kind of things? Clearly, one thing we do see is that people like the MCU still, and Ant-Man and Paul Rudd are still marketable stuff. But also, the third point I want to hit up is, what does this mean for the rest of the MCU looking forward? So, Paul Rudd, likable guy. I've seen several of his movies. I've seen him in Anchorman, a whole bunch of other movies. Seems like a nice guy. That seems to be his whole shtick. And you know what? It works for him. He's not going to win an Oscar that soon, but it keeps him getting a job. It's what he's good at. I first saw him in Friends. Did a good job. He stays in his lane. You can't blame the guy for that. So, you gotta get what you're gonna get, which leads to Ant-Man. Listen, Ant-Man is awesome, but clearly he's not Iron Man, he's not Thor, he's not Spider-Man, he's not Captain America, he's not Groot, he's not Rocket Raccoon. The point is, with Ant-Man, you know what you're gonna get. And if you've seen the last two Ant-Man movies, you know what kind of movie you're gonna get. You're not gonna get Winter Soldier, you're not gonna get Thor Ragnarok, or Thor Love and Thunder. You're not gonna get any of that. You're gonna get Ant-Man. It's meant to be funny, lighthearted, stuff like that, which we kind of need more in the MCU. Especially after how pretty emotional and focused on grief Phase 4 was. Which leads me to my third point. It seems that the MCU in general has been going through a big change ever since Endgame. I brought this up the last movie, but Endgame, I think there's several points people need to understand. And the first is that, look, it took 11 years and God knows how many movies, shorts, projects, and stuff like that, some of which failed. Shout out to the ABC, MCU shows and the Inhumans. So, it takes time, you remember, although it's 2023, Endgame was only 4 years ago. Oh gosh, it was only 4 years ago. But the point is, it takes time to build up to that kind of level of stuff. So, give it time. And in that time, you have to remember that the MCU had some not so great movies in between Iron Man and Endgame. You had Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, Thor 2. I didn't even bother to see Thor 2 just because it was that bad reviewed and stuff like that. And so, you're not gonna get you're always gonna get some bangers, and that's okay. Sometimes it's just, you gotta do what you gotta do. But you know what? In each of those movies, the story progressed. With Ant-Man, the story progressed. Maybe not in the way people want with every single movie since Endgame, but in order to get to Endgame, you have to move the story along bit by bit. The other thing is that what we're trying to do here is that we're trying to do what we did for Thanos. Like with Thanos, it took time. You had to understand not only the fact that he was gonna snap half the universe away, but you had to understand as to why. Why did it matter? And I think personally, to me, that's what made Infinity War a bit better than Endgame, which is, I know, kind of a little controversial, but it is because, see, with Infinity War, if you ever seen the show Breaking Bad, Infinity War was to the MCU what Ozymandias was to the Breaking Bad show. And spoiler if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, which it's been over 10 years, you gotta see it. Ozymandias was kind of basically the the climax of the show. You know, this is when everything came together, all the storylines, all the build up led to everything, and then there was an explosion. And I would say to as a fan of both Breaking Bad and the MCU, you gotta have that. Like I think people tend to be like, oh, they want to focus on the big finale of the explosions and stuff, which is fine. But if you look at story structure and stuff like that, there has to be a falling out. There has to be a resolution to it, and that's what Endgame was. And in a way, that's what the rest of Breaking Bad was. And this it's a bit of a unique situation because normally that's where the story ends. But for something like the MCU, you end it and then you have to restart it, and it's really hard to do that. I can only really think of the only other intellectual property that does this is Doctor Who. But the thing is that like with Doctor Who, you get the Doctor changing out actors, and I use that in a non-gendered way as we now have male and female actors playing and non-binary individuals playing the Doctor and or playing characters in Doctor Who. And with the MCU, like you kind of don't really, it has some similarities, but you don't switch out the actors yet. So it's like this MCU's in a unique situation. So with that being said, they gotta develop a new, with all these new characters like with Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, all this stuff. You gotta develop a new big baddie. And if your big baddie from the past was, a guy who snapped away half the universe, what it could be possibly worse than that. And now you have this guy who can not only use the Infinity Gauntlet, powers of it, but he can go through time and space and rewrite and all this stuff. And it takes time to show that. And again, spoiler alert. I'm going to be doing spoilers from now on. So if you got this far, you want to stop. We've seen this in the Loki show. Like, you see this is some guy who is aware of the multiverse and tries to manage it and fails. And in Quantumania, tries to manage it in a more violent way and fails. And so it's like, okay, well, this is clearly somebody who is, aware of and can affect / control aspects of the multiverse. And the multiverse is pushing back. It's like, okay, so what is he trying to do here and stuff like that. And you get a little bit of it with Loki, you get a little bit of it here, but it's like, hey, we're going to hit other things. And, when we hit Kang Dynasty and we hit Secret Wars, at that point, I believe, if you've seen the end credits of Quantumania, we're going to see this in season 2. And we're going to see this other stuff. And Kevin Feige just said today, hey, like, there's no part of the MCU that's not going to be touched by Jonathan and or Kang. So this is going to take time. I wouldn't be surprised if Kang has some little influence, at least, with the events of Guardians of the Galaxy coming up, Miss Marvel's coming down the line, and all that stuff. So it takes time. And again, it took 11 years to get... It took 10 years to get to Infinity War, with Thanos showing up periodically. It's going to take time for us to get more and more of Jonathan Majors. I'm looking forward to it. He's a good actor. I liked what he did in Loki. I liked what he did here. I'm excited to see what he does in Loki Season 2, and I'm excited to see how he plays out through the rest of the MCU. And finally, where I think the MCU has a very unique challenge is going to be doing things very differently. Not even shows like Doctor Who are going to be doing, is that they're going to be introducing IPs like the Fantastic Four, X-Men that, people have great expectations for. People have been wanting this for years, and then when the Fox deal went down, it's like, oh, it's going to happen. But people want it done right, and there's different interpretations of it. It's like, hey, do we bring in Hugh Jackman to play Wolverine or not? What about the Fantastic Four? And then on top of all that, you gotta integrate and carry them forward, but then like explain why they weren't not there. And they might do what they did with Spider-Man. They or was there just out of sight, or they might do something different, but we don't know. And so, they gotta bounce out. It's like, hey, how do you build up this next great arc, this next great story, while trying to continue the MCU, while adjusting to it, introducing all these new characters within the MCU, and then introducing people into the MCU and keeping it all together. And that's just such a unique challenge that, it's going to take time and it's going to be effort. So what I'm saying is this, if you like superhero movies and you like the MCU, go enjoy it. If you get annoyed with it and sometimes you feel it's a little bland, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Just understand that not every single MCU thing is going to be an endgame level banger. It's just not sustainable. And I think once we realize that, just accept the fact that sometimes the MCU movies are just going to be that. Superhero movies that are dumb and fun. And, for 2 hours, it was fun to watch this stuff. I was thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not going to lie, I was concerned. I thought this was going to be crap. But it was fun. And I think if we keep that in mind, it's fine. And, of course you can get hyped, and, I love reading the theories. I love seeing them come up, like the MODOK stuff. That was really well done by some people. But remember, these are just a group of people writing the story. They don't have the brain access to the internet in the sense that, like, they don't have the freedom in that sense from the internet. Or like, hey, like, we could throw out these really weird things, and if it fails, it feels like this is billions of dollars on the line. It's, the guy gets so cohesive, and that means sometimes they have to stick to what's gonna work. But you know what? With things like Ant-Man, funny enough, and things like the Guardians of the Galaxy, they do different things. And even Endgame and Infinity War, they went in different directions with Thanos. And look at how it worked out now. Memes. I mean, the guy showed up on freaking Fortnite, has his own dance, all that stuff. So, or emo, whatever. I don't know. I'm getting old. The point is, like, hey, don't let the critics sway your judgment. If you like it and you enjoy it, great. If you don't, and you don't want to go, that's okay. You have the right to that bet. Let the MCU be the MCU, and enjoy it, and maybe reconsider your expectations. Or not. Who do I know? I don't know what to say. I don't know who I am. I know who I am. I'm Spider-Man. It's just like, but who am I to say, I'm just a Lego. Anyways, take care, have fun. See you guys down the line for Guardians of the Galaxy.